Imagine perfection, just turning sour. Where did that first hint of darkness, that initial nudge toward rebellion and Satan actually come from? It's a question that's, well, echoed through ages. And in this exploration, we're going right to the ancient texts to try and understand the roots of his opposition.
Exactly. We're going to dig into his original untainted state, that pivotal moment of his choice, and the underlying desires that really propelled him to stand against God. Our aim isn't just to retell a story you might know, but to get a deeper understanding of, well, the very nature of evil and the steadfastness of God's authority revealed in these foundational narratives.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. The creation account tells us everything that exists owes its origin to God. Through Jesus, right? He says, through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. That seems like a really crucial starting point.
It is absolutely fundamental. This establishes God as the ultimate source of, well, everything. And because God's very nature is holy, it just follows, and the texts confirm this, that all of creation, including the angels and therefore Satan, was initially brought into existence pure, holy. Evil wasn't part of God's original design.
Right, so we have this picture of a flawless beginning. Everything God made was inherently good, which makes what happened next even more significant. Before his fall, Satan apparently held this position of incredible honor, immense privileges.
Yeah, and what's really striking is the description of his former glory. He was part of the cherubim, which is often understood as like the highest order of angels. We read in Ezekiel about an anointed cherub who covers and protects. Now that suggests a role of immense responsibility, maybe a guardian, certainly one who reflected God's own splendor. What did it mean to cover and protect back then? It hints at a profound level of trust and authority.
And it wasn't just about his rank, was it? He had direct access to God's presence. The imagery used, like him walking amid the stones of fire on the holy mountain of God,
Yeah.
that really conveys a sense of, wow, profound intimacy and unparalleled access.
Absolutely. And Ezekiel's words paint this picture of just exceptional perfection. He's described as being full of wisdom and perfect in beauty, even the seal of perfection. This wasn't just casual praise. It speaks to a being of, supreme intelligence and breathtaking beauty. Set him apart. Think about what being the seal of perfection might mean, maybe signifying a complete flawless representation of God's creative power in that realm.
And you can just picture it, adorned with all sorts of precious stones. They're in the garden of God. It's like contemplating this magnificent being, just radiating wisdom and beauty right there in God's presence.
That's the third.
Then everything changed. We read he was blameless until unrighteousness and evil were found in you.
Yeah.
How does that transition even occur? How does evil take root in something described as utterly perfect?
That's the core of the mystery, isn't it? The text simply states, iniquity was found in thee. But we get significant insight from Ezekiel again, chapter 28, verse 17. Your heart was proud and arrogant because of your beauty. You destroyed your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. Pride. That seems to be the pivotal catalyst.
So it was his own beauty, which was a gift from God, that became his undoing. He became so fixated on himself, so, I guess, enamored with his own splendor, that it spiraled into arrogance. Wow. It's a sobering thought, really, that even the most extraordinary gifts can become a source of corruption if they're not held with humility.
Precisely. His contemplation of his God-given gifts twisted into self-obsession. It's a potent reminder for all of us, isn't it? Even those who are greatly blessed are vulnerable to that subtle, destructive power of pride. Jesus himself mentioned the suddenness of it, didn't he? I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. That's not just dramatic imagery. It highlights the swift, catastrophic consequences.
And it's a danger that clearly persists. There's even that warning later on against new believers becoming conceited, lest they fall into the same condemnation incurred by the devil for his arrogance and pride. That first act of pride cast a really long shadow.
Indeed it did, and this internal pride wasn't just a passive state. It actively manifested as open rebellion against God. Isaiah gives us a vivid picture of this, those powerful 5 I will statements. They really reveal the escalating nature of Satan's ambition to seize God's place.
Okay, let's break those down. First, I will ascend to heaven. Now, he already had access, so this must mean more than just like going up there physically. It sounds like a desire to take up residence as an equal, to claim God's dwelling as his own rightful place.
Exactly. That's the sense. The second is, I will raise my throne above the stars of God. Here, stars are often taken to mean angels. So it indicates a desire to rule over the entire angelic realm, to set himself up as the supreme authority there.
Then, I will sit on the Mount of Assembly. What's that about? Sounds like the center of God's government or something.
Likely, yes, perhaps associated with future divine rule. So, Satan's desire here is to basically usurp God's authority in running his kingdom.
Okay, next. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. This sounds like wanting glory, right?
hmm A yearning for glory that wouldn't just equal but actually surpass God's own splendor. It's a pretty blatant attempt to outshine the Creator.
And the final one, the most audacious. I will make myself like the Most High.
hmm
That's the ultimate goal, isn't it? To supplant God, seize his very authority and control. Not just be great, but be God.
It's critical to see that his ambition wasn't just about being, different or even powerful alongside God. He coveted God's inherent power and authority, wanted it for himself. He chose force, seizure, rather than humble submission. And as the texts consistently show, there is no one like God. He doesn't share his unique glory or position.
So the consequence of this rebellion was immediate, devastating. He lost that original holiness and corruption just took root. He became Satan, the adversary, the opposer.
Yes, and he didn't fall alone. The texts indicate he influenced a significant number of other angels to join him. Some interpretations suggest maybe a third of them. His former dwelling place, that holy mountain, was defiled by this. And as Ezekiel describes, he was cast out like something impure.
And the ultimate outcome described. It's pretty stark, isn't it? The lake of fire, specifically prepared for the devil and his angels. That's the final judgment mentioned.
His ultimate doom is certain, yeah, though its full execution is yet to come. For now, he continues to oppose God and his plans. But his end is assured, according to these writings, which naturally leads to that question people often ask. Why? Why would a good and powerful God allow this fall in the first place?
Yeah, that is a deeply complex question. Satan's rebellion clearly introduced sin and all its awful consequences into the universe. Affecting angels, affecting humanity, can be really challenging to reconcile that with our understanding of God's nature.
It's vital, though, to remember that the very texts detailing this rebellion also consistently portray God as intrinsically holy, righteous, perfect. These writings emphasize God is not the originator or promoter of sin. One passage says temptation doesn't come from God. But at the same time, these same narratives affirm God's absolute power, his unwavering sovereignty. He remains completely in control, no genuine rival.
So God allowed it, not because he wanted it, but within his larger purposes,
Yeah.
allowing free will, even for angels,
Mm.
and with the promise that ultimately he will deal with evil definitively.
Precisely. God will ultimately judge evil and completely eradicate sin from the new creation that's promised. The lake of fire symbolizes that final, eternal separation from God for those who persist in rebellion.
Understand that Satan is a created being, not some sort of eternal evil counterpart to God. That feels like a really key insight. He doesn't have God's attributes, right?
Right.
Not all powerful, not all knowing.
Exactly. And what's particularly illuminating is how these accounts always point back to God's ultimate, unchallenged authority. Throughout this whole narrative, there's this recurring theme, the recognition that I am the Lord. God is presented as being in complete command from Satan's creation right through to his final destiny.
And on a more personal level, realizing that Satan's downfall started with pride, well, that offers a powerful lesson for us. It highlights a constant danger we all face, doesn't it? Underscores the vital importance of humility in our own lives.
Absolutely. By understanding the destructive nature of Satan's pride, we can hopefully be more vigilant against its subtle forms in our own hearts, relying on God's strength to cultivate humility instead. Ultimately, as these ancient texts reveal, Satan's destruction is the inevitable result of his own arrogance and ongoing rebellion.
So to kind of wrap this deep dive up, Satan was created holy, highly privileged, amazing angel, but his pride, fueled by his own beauty and status, led him to want God's supreme authority. This resulted in rebellion, his fall, and he dragged many other angels down with him. Yet despite his current opposition, God remains absolutely sovereign and will ultimately bring all evil to judgment.
Right. And so maybe for you, the listener, consider this. Reflecting on this detailed account, this descent from perfection, all because of pride, how might this understanding reshape your own awareness of the subtle dangers of self-exaltation in your daily life and maybe deepen your appreciation?